Welcome to the Dr. Paul Show. I have the honor of having a really special guest on, Megan. Megan's seen me since about 2020, so about 5 years now. So Megan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So you have a really a rough story. So can you take me back to your childhood and tell us what happened back then?
Yeah, it wasn't until later in life that I kind of was able to recognize some of the things that happened. But when I was a child, aside from not having much emotional support, I experienced sexual I was molested. And so
At what age?
uh, I, I'm sorry.
At what age?
Um, from what I remember, it started around 8. Um,
Jeez.
And that's just what I remember. I've since learned that it could have started earlier, but I think I kind of blocked some of that out. But what I remember was it starting around 8 and probably continuing for about 2 years. Um, and what I thought was just playing a game of house. Yeah, it was very eye-opening to learn that that was not normal. Um, and yeah, so I kind of throughout that age, I had a lot of stomach issues. I would find myself at the doctor's a lot, with inexplicable pain. I had multiple procedures. By the age of 10, a colonoscopy. I had an upper GI, a lower GI. I had a probe in my esophagus. I had multiple CAT scans, and everything just came back either normal or inconclusive. And so it was very frustrating because I was not feeling well. I was in pain, and didn't understand why. And so that was kind of the early childhood, and it eventually transitioned to my teenage years. In middle school, I was missing at least 1 or 2 days of school a week with the stomach pain. That's when I really started to have some darker thoughts, about kind of just wanting to end that pain. And again, still not having much of an explanation. Eventually in high school, once it got so bad that I was, having to leave school on a regular basis, I eventually decided to do independent studies or homeschooling just because I was having so much trouble sitting in class with the pain, the anxiety that I was experiencing. And yeah, it was really difficult, and it started to manifest as what was diagnosed as, at the time, as an eating disorder. But it, you know, it was underlying stuff that kind of led me to find a way to control something in my life. And that was through food and, controlling the portions, controlling, what I was eating. And yeah, it started to spiral, and I had difficulty recognizing what was going on.
You told me too the first visit I saw you that you were having anxiety around 3 years old. Was that about right? And tell me about that.
Yeah, so I remember like my first experience of anxiety was I was visiting my grandpa in Florida, and I was with my mom and my brother, who was about 1 year old at the time, and I just felt this overwhelming anxiety and fear that, something bad was going to happen to him, like he wasn't, being kept away from, the water's edge, and I just was so overwhelmed by it that I had what I imagine would have been described as a bit of a meltdown. Um, I was again told that that kind of continued throughout those early years. There was one incident when I was about 5 where it was with a group of other like preschoolers and their parents. And again, I just was really struggling to be there, feeling what I again would now imagine was very overwhelmed and out of control. And, it kind of supports the idea that maybe there was some other stuff going on that I just quite don't quite remember as to what it was. But yeah, I do remember it starting at a very, very early age.
And I know you had a really Tell me about the abuse you went through when you were younger. I know it was pretty severe.
Yeah, so I, I didn't really, again, have much emotional support. I played a lot of sports, and my parents were both full-time workers, and so I didn't really, they were just very busy, and um, I started, spending time with someone that I trusted and that my parents would allow me to spend time with. And shortly after, we again started to play what I imagined was house and or what I learned was house. And, it started innocent enough and then progressed to kissing and eventually was told like, oh, well, this is how you make babies. And this is, and I was just going along with it and not really understanding again what was going on. Um, and so there was a lot of times where I was spending this with this person with, no clothes on, engaging in those kinds of acts. And, there was a time even when it was in my own home. And I remember my mom walking in and, we were hiding under the bed and there was a blanket over us. Or, it was just a very weird thing. And um, I don't know that she didn't recognize what was going on, or maybe just, again, it's unfortunately it happens so often with people that are, close and that you're not suspecting would be doing those things. And so it was kind of just overlooked. Again, I didn't see it as an issue at the time. Because again, I thought I was just playing house and that's what people did. And
Yeah,
I thought it was normal.
you don't know any
And it
different.
wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want, if this is too personal, but you want to say who it was, a relative or anything, or do you not want to say that?
It was a family friend.
Okay.
Yeah. So a
Um,
neighbor specifically.
Grooming you, and you don't know because I mean, at that age, you have no thoughts. There's no like sexual thoughts at all
Yeah.
before puberty,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
that's where the a lot of victims there because they just figuring, oh, this is just normal, this is the way things are. And
Yep.
tell me about the physical abuse you went through when you were younger too.
Again, I don't really remember it, but once I got older and I had some x-rays taken, it shows that I have some chipped vertebrae. And those can that with the way that it is, it has to happen before the age of 13. And so again, I don't remember much about it, but it suggests that, it involved a lot of, whether it's my hair being pulled or an abrupt way of just being yanked back. And so um yeah, it's hard to know what that was or, you know, what might have caused that, but um, it would also explain kind of the anxiety that I was feeling early on. And yeah, just kind of, again, thinking it was normal. My parents never like hit me or anything like that, but um, there were just some instances where, whether it was teachers or, um,
Mhm.
again, trusted individuals were just either emotionally, or psychologically or physically a little more um, rough than, they should be. And so that was difficult as well because I just kind of felt like, again, it was normal. I didn't really know any different. I, was very insecure and felt like I was always the issue. And so, yeah, from what I can remember it, which isn't much, yeah, that's kind of what it was.
And the eating disorder starting at 16 was, so we're talking about anorexia. So you weren't purging, you were restricting, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I was diagnosed with anorexia nervosa. I just turned 16. And I remember my doctor saying, you're going to die. And it was like really horrible. And I ended up being kind of tricked into an inpatient facility, which was even worse and made it worse. And yeah, with the body dysmorphia that started to develop, I truly didn't see the issue of the rapid weight loss, but I was 16 and going from like 120 pounds to 83 within a month or two was um, it still didn't register. And again, I just finally felt like I had some level of control. I'd gotten my first job and was working pretty often with that, which doing the homeschooling really allowed me to do. And so I was just very busy with that. I had gotten recently out of sexually abusive relationship. Um, and again, didn't realize that it was until later on in life because, again, it wasn't, that was what I had experienced as a child too. But, now in a way of understanding what sex was or what intimacy was. And so, um, yeah, once that ended and it was kind of once that person just kind of ended it with me and I felt really abandoned, it was my way of coping and having some level of control. And it felt good for, months until it didn't anymore. And that's when I started to have really dark thoughts again. And that was kind of like
Mm.
the start of my 2-year journey with, having suicidal ideation, kind of planning what that was going to entail. And yeah, it was a rough period, and lost my grandpa shortly after. And so that made it even more difficult because he was someone I was very close with.
How did the eating disorder resolve? What finally took care of that?
It kind of took a flip where I started binging a lot. And, I fell into a very deep depression, which I had experienced earlier on in life. But it was really dark. I was self-isolating. I was inside all the time. And, again, I started turning to food where, again, it took that opposite impact and I gained weight really rapidly. And for, again, having that body dysmorphia and going from 83 and expecting that to be what my new normal was, and then going back up, even though it was like to 120 or whatever, um, it was really hard. And so I eventually got to a point where, again, after my grandpa passed away and like needing some control, I fully stopped eating. And I remember not eating for 19 to 21 days straight. And again, had lost some weight, not as much, but I feel like after going to that inpatient place, and which I ended up getting out of early because of the mistreatment and just a lot of psychological abuse there. And um, it actually ended up, manifesting as what would typically be seen more commonly in an eating disorder. Um, and, after that, those 21 days ended and I ate, it would be sort of intermittent where I'd go a few days without eating, um, would eat for a day or two, kind of
Mm.
binge, but not in the same way that I was before, where it was just copious amounts of unhealthy food and where that was all I thought of. And then I eventually just got to a point where I was tired of it and made the conscious choice, like I have to start eating regularly, um, trying not to regulate as much, but still having goals for what, wanting to feel healthy. And so it took a long time. It probably took almost a year to be able to do that. But um, it, it was something that I knew needed to happen because I was not happy and it was, kind of consuming me. And I didn't want to feel like the people that had mistreated me were winning. And so I kind of used that as some motivation to move forward.
Yeah, what you said is very typical. I have in my first book, I have the largest chapter of the book is on eating disorders, and it's something I've treated for over 30 years now. But yeah, what you said about control, because in your life to that point, you didn't have control. You were being controlled. And so it's very common. People say that this is something I can control. I can control what goes in. I can control what goes out. I can control whatever type of eating disorder it is. And it's a very difficult to resolve too. So the fact that you got through that is definitely a testament to your will. Uh,
Thank you.
and tell me about when you were first diagnosed with PTSD.
Yeah, so I was 21. I, despite, leaving school, just before that, after a big family fallout, that was unexpected, my parents divorcing and again, experiencing some abandonment. I was suicidal. I had a plan. I was self-harming. And the day that I had, it was, I don't know how, but the day that it happened, I got a call that my brother was doing the same and that he had started self-harming because of me. And I, in that moment, knew like I can't leave him in the same way that we've been left by the people that are never supposed to leave us. And so um, I made the decision to start community college. And um, shortly after that, I was around 19 at the time, going on 20. And then about a year later, again, experienced a really unfortunate relationship and had a miscarriage. And then that person left right after. And so I again fell into a really, really deep depression. And while I had done therapy before, it just never stuck. And I had tried medication earlier on in my life, but and those were like SSRIs, like Prozac, Zoloft, and it made me suicidal. And so eventually I was referred by a really great physician to um, my therapist, who, when she told me I had PTSD, despite me studying psychology, I was like, but I'm not a veteran, what do you mean? Um, and, it took me some time to process, but once I did, it's just like all the puzzle pieces started to fall into place. And that was really kind of the start of my, what I feel like is my long-term recovery from the experiences that I ex did have. And I think, I was first referred to a psychologist who, um, I'd started on, I don't even remember what it was, but it wasn't, the SNRIs that I take now, but something helped. I think it was Pristique, and it actually, like, it felt, as cliche as it might sound, like I finally felt like I was seeing the world in color versus just like this gray, black, white, mundane, you just get through the day. And so it was hard, it was angry at a lot of people. Um, I really turned to writing, which helped me process a lot. I started to understand the nightmares and the night terrors and kind of where some of those were coming from, and also finally understood, that the experiences I had early in life were not normal. The sexual abuse was not normal. Um, and while it was very difficult, for a couple of years, I would say, um, it motivated me to want to help others who've experienced, something similar. And ultimately, I felt really grateful that I did learn, so I wasn't living my whole life, um, again, just kind of like stuck under these things that had happened to me. Like I've seen, unfortunately, happens to so many people just because they don't find those people, that they need. And there's a lot of, while you can go to therapy, it takes a while to find the right person. And while you can go to a psychologist, it takes a while to find the right person, which, while I didn't start that journey with you, ultimately being referred to you and getting on that right path was just like, again, it kind of really helped things line up and finally felt like I could move forward with my life.
Is Colleen the one that did the diagnosed you with PTSD?
Yes.
Yeah. Shout out to Colleen Spencer, by the way, who I've worked with for many years.
Yes.
So tell me your experience, I mean, with EMDR therapy.
Yeah, we did that for a while. It was really powerful. It took a couple times to kind of acclimate to it and just get out of my head, because I'm a very analytical and I also wanted to understand it. And so I just had to let myself be the patient. Um, and I just remember like it started to help with some of the body pain I was experiencing. I was able to move past some of the shame and guilt I was experiencing from, whether it was not being there when my grandpa had passed away or, again, just a lot of that I was carrying with me. And so, yeah, it was, again, difficult at times and emotional. And it finally allowed me to feel emotion as well. I had always had difficulty crying and I always had difficulty. I would just like go through the motions and, um, yeah, it finally allowed me to experience, while there might be some difficult emotions, the positive ones as well. And so I thought it was a really powerful experience, and I'm thankful that it was something that she was able to do with me.
That's very effective. I've had many patients have it. It's and yeah, like you said before, about PTSD. I have a chapter in my new book about it, but people think, oh, that's just the veterans from the wars, and but it comes. There's a lot of sources of PTSD, like what you went through, sexual trauma, physical abuse potentially, but victims of rape, victims of sexual abuse, like you said,
Yeah.
even later in life with a boyfriend, and
Mhm.
um, you know, uh, people who witness murders or almost killed. So it's yeah, a lot of people have gone through some really horrific things, but EMDR, it's a tough therapy. I understand that it's a very difficult therapy to go through. You have to kind of relive things, and you have to, but it's really effective. I've seen a lot
Yeah.
of success with it.
Yeah.
In the medications, like I think you had told me SSRI, like Zoloft, and when I saw you, I think you were already on like Prestige, Wellbutrin, and Adderall because you had been diagnosed also with ADD.
I don't think I was on the Wellbutrin yet. I remember you, if I'm remembering correctly, you were like this because I was still experiencing some lows, and while it had like significantly helped, I wasn't quite there yet. And I remember you saying it pairs really well with the Prestique, and so I could be wrong, but I
Yeah,
feel or what from my memory, I remember that I think you were the one that first
yeah.
prescribed that for me.
It
Um,
sounds like
and
me.
not, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I do it a lot. Anyone who's watches the show knows that the Prestige Wellbutrin combination I call the dynamic duo of medication
mhm,
because Prestige balances serotonin and norepinephrine, and so it's better than SSRIs usually. Most doctors are not aware
right,
of that, by the way. Most doctors, Zoloft, Prozac, Paxil, Lexapro, they ever just
yeah,
go, they just do one after the other, and not step back and think, okay, well, if one isn't working, why would we think another one would work? And they don't.
yeah,
So I
yeah,
discovered that, over 30 years ago when Effexor came out before, before Prestige, the first one was Effexor. And that's kind of what led me to this journey leading me from a family doctor to full-time doing mental health was that
mhm,
discovery early on that there's something going on here with these drugs.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then I figured out Wellbutrin addiction, and then I think with you also you were diagnosed with ADD, put on Adderall, which was really
mhm,
helpful. But
yeah,
then there was still some residual depression that you were having after that, and
yeah,
I tried to break Zolti, which made you more
yeah,
anxious. That didn't work out, and then I put you on Lamictal.
yes,
Seemed to be like the last little piece that really helped
yeah.
to even things out.
Yeah, definitely. We've had to work to find the right dosage just because it also has impacted like my stomach and my digestion. And so I have to, I know we had to we went, started low because you have to start with the titrations and everything, but, and got, 100 milligrams was ideal, but it was also just causing like so much discomfort in my stomach every day that it kind of, you know, it was making it difficult and adding another layer of anxiety. And so I think kind of evening going to a lower dose, while it wasn't like, didn't feel as
Right,
like, wow, it still has made a difference. And, it's have, yeah, it definitely has helped me stabilize. And while I've had like some days where I feel really low, it's a day or two here and there. after a difficult experience. It's not, like weeks or months and where it just consumes me, and that has been really transformative as well, especially as I've progressed in, my education and my career. And, I'm not as fearful that I'm not constantly dreading that, like, when's the next time this is going to happen? When am I going to fall into that pit again? And will I even be able to get myself out again? Because it's each time it becomes more difficult. And so, super grateful. For all of that, and being able to finally like live life and experience it in a way that feels good.
Anyway, what happened with you earlier in life with your abdominal issues? That was irritable bowel syndrome. Uh,
Hmm.
why all the testing came back normal because the chemical imbalances in your nervous system affect that. So all the nervous system goes everywhere in your body, including the gut, and that's why
Yeah,
you were having those issues. And when we de-stress a person, sometimes that gets better. But sometimes some people will have a little occasional stress flare up, and it'll affect people occasionally here and there. Do you
yeah.
still get that at all, or no?
Yeah, I still have it to a degree. It's just not like where it's keeping me debilitated, where I just can't feel like I can't do anything. But yeah, when I am feeling more on the anxious side because of, a situation that arises, I do notice it has an effect on my digestive system. And while I think it's gotten a lot better, I think that, I don't know, you might have some insight, but I think your body just gets so used to it and like almost expects it to happen, or, it's just the way it's always responded. And so it's kind of trained itself almost to like, that's the reaction it has. And again, it's gotten a lot better, but I do notice that there are little flare-ups here and there.
And you've done really well. I mean, after your bachelor's degree, I know you had a bachelor's in biology and psychology, and then you did a master's in psychology, right? And then
Yeah, in legal and forensic psychology.
forensics. And now you're working in forensic psychology with the police department, right?
Yeah, I recently moved to Estes Park, Colorado, and I work under the police department here. And it's a hybrid between a nonprofit and the police department, but I'm in the role of the restorative justice program and the coordinator. And so we have a really amazing program up here. And
Uh,
a lot of especially the juveniles that come through have, previous things, and it really helps me, putting aside my clinical background, because I, have to stay within the scope of practice, but it really helps me to provide a space for them to feel like they can open up, because understanding those things is important when we're moving through these processes, because, chances are they haven't worked through it themselves. And we want to make sure that they're in a place to move forward and get the help that they need. And so, while it has been difficult to experience some of the things that I have, I'm really grateful for how it has now shaped my understanding and ability to help others.
I was just gonna say that now you understand how they feel because you've been
Mhm.
there, you kind of been where some of them have been at, so you have that experience, and you can
Yeah,
and you can share that with them, and that probably really helps them a lot. But yeah,
yeah, that's
you
what I hope. So
really proud of how far you've gone and what you've done.
thank
It's
you.
really amazing, and I love Colorado. So uh,
Yeah, it's beautiful, especially Estes Park. I mean,
yeah,
feel so lucky to be here. It's
yeah,
one of the most beautiful places I've ever been to, and I
yeah,
get to, see it every single day. And
yeah.
yeah, I love it.
Anything else you'd like to share before we close?
No, again, I want to thank you for, everything you've done for me in the past 5 years, and will likely, and continuing to support me and to hear me, and what my needs were, because that was not something I experienced throughout my whole medical journey growing up. It just, again, no one was recognizing what was going on. So, um, I do hope that more, physicians and medical doctors, are able to access your books and get that understanding, because I think it could be so transformative for how people get help. So yeah, I just want to thank you for everything you've done for me, for others, and
Yeah.
um, yeah.
I love doing it, and I've actually right now I'm editing two books. So these will be my fifth and sixth books released, but I'm editing two books right now this year for doctors. So, I wrote them years ago before my most recent book, but I kind of put them aside. Now I pulled them back out this year, and now I'm editing them. So I finished one of them. I'm working on the second one now. But yeah, they're both training manuals for, especially for primary care doctors, is my
Mm.
target audience, which is what I where I started.
Yeah.
And and there's a lot of people out there that really don't understand the medications, what to do.
Yep.
But that's kind of my next goal. I want to get into teaching now,
Yeah.
and so it's exhausting, the writing and the
I'm
editing,
sure.
trying to just finish it out. And it's going to be another
Yeah.
couple months, and I should be done. So,
Yeah.
but I'm just, and then I'm done. It'll be a huge relief, and I'll be completely done with writing.
Yeah.
Big after six books and 23 years of writing, I'll finally be done.
Yeah.
And then people say, "Are you sure you're done?" I go, "I'm sure. Trust me, I'm sure I'm done. And I
Yeah.
I don't have anything else to write. I'm done."
Right. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, thank you
Awesome.
so much for
Congrats.
being on our show. I really appreciate it and
Yeah.
hearing your story because it's very encouraging. I think people out there who are suffering and to know that there is really hope out there, that don't give up. And
Yeah.
if you have thoughts of harming yourself, if you have thoughts of, because the pain is so terrible that you want to end it, there's just know that there's hope out there, that you can feel better and get better. uh,
Yeah.
you just need to go to the right people, the right psychologist, the right physician, get the treatment that's needed. And
Yeah.
so, all right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for Megan for coming on.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Corona.
All
All
right.
right.
Bye.
Have a good one. Bye.
So in the case of Megan, really good results with her. But it took it takes, like with most of my patients, a combination of medications with her. She had a combination of depression, anxiety. I also figured out with her that she had, we call bipolar depression. So bipolar depression, she didn't have any mania, hypomania. She would just get depressed. And I knew that because when I gave her what I often will give for anxiety, depression, which is Pristique, is probably my number one for that. And again, it's a serotonin and norepinephrine reuptake inhibitor. So basically, it boosts serotonin, and so serotonin moves in here into the next cell. Norepinephrine is going to be from here to the next cell over here. So those are connecting. And as a lot of people know, if you've seen my show, I often add Wellbutrin to the mix. Not everybody, but a lot. And so that works on a little bit on norepinephrine, mostly on dopamine. So with the Pristique Wellbutrin combination, now we got this going that way, and we got dopamine going this way. Yeah. So that's good, but she would still she still had these bouts of depression, and so I was thinking, okay, she's not bipolar 1 or 2, but she might have bipolar depression. And so what I often will give for that is a medication called Lamictal. So Lamictal is a very unique medication. It's an antidepressant and mood stabilizer. So it really works on this remaining chemical called GABA. Well, actually it's GABA, but it's but GABA, basically, if we move GABA forward, it relaxes the system and it helps with depression. If we move glutamate forward, it makes the person more nervous. And so what Lamictal does is actually attaches here and it suppresses glutamate. So it makes glutamate go this way, which has a calming effect. And then what that results in is then if glutamate's going this way, then GABA's going this way. And then that one's connecting to the next cell. Anyway, and that's connecting to the next cell. And then, so now we got all four going the right way. Let me see right here. Anyways, it's everything's connecting here. And the one thing that's missing with her, sorry about the GABA's here. Anyway. So the one thing also is that I discovered that really with her is I diagnosed her with ADD. So everything was moving the right way, but she was still struggling. The mood was great, but still struggling with focus, concentration, organization, struggling at work, struggling at school. So I put her on Adderall extended release, so it's a once a day Adderall. And what did that do? That really stimulates, especially works on norepinephrine and dopamine. And those are the ADD chemicals. So things are going the right way, but then it gets these going the right way even faster, and they connect better. And that helps with the focus, the concentration. And since she's already on these other two, it doesn't increase anxiety. It didn't make her feel depressed. So again, a lot of my patients are like her on she's on 4 medication, but that's what it took to get the complete results with her. And she's been doing great on this combination for a while now. Got through school well, has a great job, got through her master's program. Now she works in forensic psychology. It's a really fascinating field. And she's doing her life is doing really well. So again, another excellent result.